Well, I wanted to thank you for all coming out tonight in this rain. So thanks for braving through the weather. For those of you who are coming to your first meeting, my name is Raj Kachadkar. I am the Deputy Director of Planning and Zoning for Howard County. So I'm really happy to see you all here tonight. I just want you all to know that I'm excited about this presentation and the information we're going to be sharing with you. I actually lived in Long Reach for 7 years, and in fact, my house is about a 2-minute walk from here. And I remember coming through, shopping at the dollar store, shopping at the Safeway, and we're really looking to introduce this new revitalization plan and bring some vibrancy back to the Village Center. And this plan tonight, we're going to give you an overview of it. It's actually been posted on the website, so you all have an opportunity to really read it in depth and give us feedback on that plan. But tonight, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an overview of what is in that plan, and we'll have plenty of time for you to ask questions, really get to understand what we plan to do here in the Long Reach Village Center. In terms of the agenda for tonight, we're going to have County Executive Allan Kittleman speak. After he speaks, we're going to have Council Member Dr. Calvin Ball speak. Then I'm actually going to get into the plan itself, what we're covering in that plan, and also the process. How do we get to the plan, okay? And where do we need to go from here? Because there's still several steps involved in getting this plan passed by the council. And then finally, for the second half of tonight's event, we're going to have an open house. And that's going to give you the opportunity to engage DPZ, Department of Planning staff, one-on-one. You'll see these tables throughout the space. We are there to answer all the questions you have. So based on this brief that I'm going to be providing, please ask us whatever is on your mind. I'm going to ask that you let me get through the briefing, okay? So we're not going to do a Q&A while I'm up here. But after I'm done, we're going to be here for another 45 minutes to answer all the questions that you have. But we expect to share a lot of information with you tonight. And as I said, even after tonight's over, there'll be ample opportunity for you to engage staff and ask additional questions. But before I get into the briefing, I'd like to call up our County Executive, Allan Kittleman, for a few introductory remarks.
Thank you, Josh. Thanks. Good evening. Come on. Good evening. If you brave the weather, you should be yelling. Thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate you coming out tonight to look at the next step as we continue to reimagine Long Reach. And, you know, this has been a process that's been going on for a while. You know, we've had meetings in April and May and June and September. We're continuing to do as best we can to get the input from the residents and the village board. I want to thank Raj and all the folks from the Department of Planning and Zoning. I know that Val Lasdens is here as our Director of Planning and Zoning, and also Tom Carbo is here from the Department of Housing and Community Development and others. So, you know, they're here to answer any questions you might have or to help you. And you know, we have really tried the best we could to make sure that we had experts in the fields from various different viewpoints, from the physical aspect of what we could do with the village center to whether or not residential would fit here, whether or not other items are there. So we really tried to provide you with the information you could use to help provide a best thought of what you want to have happen here, and we're excited about that. You know, we've had, I think it was 150 people roughly attending the meetings. We've had over 300 suggestions of ideas to have and what we want to see in Long Reach Village Center. So we've got a lot to work with, and we're looking forward to continue working with you. I also want to make sure I acknowledge, before I bring up Dr. Calvin Ball, Mary Kay Siggety is here, the chair of the County Council. So thank you very much, Mary Kay, for being here as well. And then last, I want to finish up just with, you know, we're working on the urban renewal plan for the village, and that's the thing we have to do to get going on this after we figure out the concepts. And we still have several steps to do with that. But the urban renewal plan will provide a framework for the redevelopment, which is required in legislation authorizing the purchase of the village center that the county did before actually I took office. Then the council will review the plan after the community meetings have been completed, and then they'll hold a public hearing. So there'll be more opportunity for people to be involved in the process. And then when the final plan is approved, the county will move forward with a request for proposal to solicit interest from private developers to purchase the county-owned property and redevelop it using the guidelines from the urban renewal plan. So there's still a long way to go, but we've come a long way as well, and we've been successful because of your willingness to participate. So thank you very much for that. And I also want to thank Dr. Calvin Ball. If you can come forward, Dr. Ball. Dr. Calvin Ball, your representative, has been very involved in this process, and I certainly appreciate his hard work, and I want to make sure I give him an opportunity to say a few words. So thank you, Dr. Ball. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, good evening, everyone. It is so good to be here with you, and it harkens me back to why I moved to Columbia. We moved to Columbia because of the hope and the opportunity, and because I knew that together we could do exciting things. Now, we've had a lot of challenges recently in Long Reach, but coming together, I know that we can write that next best chapter in our community's history. And I just want to take a moment to thank everyone who braved the weather, because you could be doing so many other things, but you stay committed to our community. And I also want to thank not only the county executive, but all of his staff. They have worked so hard. In fact, when Allan first took office, one of the first things he did was he called me up, and we sat down and we talked about, what do you want to do in Long Reach? What should be the future of Long Reach? And that showed me that he was as committed to the future of Long Reach as I am. So I just am excited for us to be here. I'm excited about the possibilities, and I'm looking forward to us not only looking at some of these ideas, but together creating our plan for the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And to piggyback off that, yes, collaboration has been a big part of this process. And one of our most important partners has been the Columbia Association. So I also want to recognize the CA, Columbia Association CEO, Milton Matthews in the back. So in terms of the agenda for tonight, we are now going to get into the briefing. And first I'm going to talk about process, how we got here, where we need to go, and then I'm going to get into the guts of that, the actual renewal plan. But as the county executive mentioned, we had urban renewal legislation, and that legislation allowed us to purchase this property. And upon acquiring this property, we were required to stabilize the property, so we were working on adding additional lighting here, getting additional security here, cleaning up the center. Okay, and once we accomplished that, it was coming up with this plan. And there are a lot of ways that we can do this. And quite frankly, this is the first time Howard County has worked on an urban renewal plan. Some of you may have lived in another jurisdiction and you've gone through this process before, but it's the first time for planning and zoning. It's the first time for the county council, for the administration, and for the community here in Long Reach. This is the first time we're all going through this effort together. And so we looked at other jurisdictions to see what they were doing and how they were doing it. The key here with our plan is that we wanted to look at the 19.1 acres. You'll see here this map, everything in yellow, that's 19.1 acres. So this plan that we've put out on the website that you'll all get a chance to view, it's covering that area. Now, we purchased 7.7 acres. So what you see there in orange, okay, that's what the county, okay, that's what we own. And as we're going through the plan, we wanted to look at everything that's in yellow to really understand all the possibilities. Because if a private developer comes into, if they acquire this 7.7 acres, they may be able to work with the Columbia Association on the 5.16 acres they have. They may be able to purchase other properties in there. So we're looking at that entire space. Now, as we said before, our objective after this plan is approved by the county council is we want to put out an RFP. Okay, and that's a request for a proposal. We're going to put that out, and we're going to ask a private developer to come in and to revitalize this village center. And they are going to be using this plan. Now, through that RFP process, they're going to acquire that 7.7 acres, but this plan is going to show them all the possibilities within that yellow outline there. Okay. Now, you've all seen this slide before, I know, lots of input, and I want to share this because this has been truly a collaborative process, and this slide is not exhaustive. I could probably add 7 or 8 more different elements. In addition to the studies you're seeing there, we had a housing study done, which you learned about at the last meeting. We've engaged the community association, the village board, so there have been a lot of different folks really added to this process. So it's added to a really robust plan. Now, in terms of your part and how you've played a role in this plan, in addition to all those other groups that provided input, we've had 4 prior community meetings. And for those of you who are coming to your first meeting, or you've been to 1 or 2 meetings, you haven't been to all the meetings, I'm not going to belabor the slide and get into every single, the nuts and bolts of each meeting, but I do want to touch on very quickly each of the meetings and what the overall theme was. In the first meeting, we did a market analysis, right? And it was a previous study that was done of all the village centers, and we learned about retail. And for example, within a 1.5 mile radius, we have 8 grocery stores that are in this area. So it makes retail a little tough. But the key is we still want there to be a commercial retail presence here in the village center. That's very critical. So we're looking at ways we can get around those difficulties, because that's an important element here. We also did a site analysis. What's the connectivity? How do we increase the connectivity for bike and ped? What's the topography here? So is it going to be hard for a developer to come in and redevelop? So those are all the things we looked at in meeting number 1. In meeting number 2, we looked at Wild Lake. So Wild Lake is a village center, and for those of you who haven't been there, while it was a long process, they redeveloped that village center, and there are things that we can take away from that redevelopment. There are things that we might like as a community and say, you know what, we want to emphasize that, and there are other things that might not be as great a fit here as they were in Wild Lake. But the key was we don't want to reinvent the wheel, and we wanted to see what did they learn, what process did they go through. So that was the first part of that second meeting. In terms of the second part of that meeting, we looked at the arts concept. So we found out that arts is viable here, which is good. And there are different components of arts that we can bring in here. And one of the things we learned is that there is an art supply store here for almost 20 miles. So the arts concept is something that we looked at very closely. It's a part of the plan, okay? I'll get into that a little bit more as we move along. But it's one of the possibilities, because the key here when we're talking about this plan is the plan is laying out what we can do, not what we must do, okay? We're setting goalposts with this plan, and as we go through the RFP process, we're gonna start to narrow those goalposts a bit, and I'll get into that as we move along. Really quick, the third meeting, preliminary concept plans. You all remember we had those 4 concepts. Now, just for clarification, we weren't showing you those 4 concepts to put them in rank order. I think some people saw those 4 concepts and they thought, okay, we're going to do eeny, meeny, miny, mo. We're going to have 1, 2, 3, and 4. And whatever we pick as number 1, that's what a developer has to come in here, and that's what they have to do. And that's not the case. Really, the whole idea is that we wanted to show you some possibilities, and we wanted to use those concepts as a springboard and really understand, what you potentially want to see here in the Village Center. So we wanted those illustrative examples to work off of, okay? The other thing, too, is that we surveyed you. We wanted to understand, what are you looking to see here in the Village Center? And I think one of the key takeaways is that people were open to residential coming in here. Now, that'll be a component if a developer comes in. It doesn't have to be one, but the good thing is that we learned that the community and the people who have been attending these meetings were open to that possibility. The fourth meeting that we had in September, we reviewed our final planning study, and that had to do with housing. Bob Leffenfeld came and spoke to all of you, and the great thing that we learned is that for sale housing and rental housing are viable options here. So if a developer comes in addition to that concentration, if they're looking at office, retail, developing that open space, they also have residential that they could look at too that could be a part of the equation or not be a part of the equation. And then finally, we're here tonight to review the plan. Again, talk about the process. How do we get here? What is the plan all about? What is it saying? And then what happens after tonight? So in terms of the plan itself, all right, DPZ prepared the plan. The plan is now on the website, so you'll all have ample time to review it. After tonight, we are going to give you the contact information of several planning and zoning staffers. And over the coming weeks, if you do have questions about that plan, you can reach out to them. What we plan on doing is we plan on introducing this plan to the county council in December, and in January there would be a hearing. Now those are targeted dates. It might get pushed off. That's what we're targeting at this point. okay? But you all have an opportunity to still weigh in to this process. Now, this slide's really important because when people hear plans, it's a pretty broad term, especially when you're in planning like I am. And there's lots of different types of plans out there. And I know a lot of times as we were going through these meetings and we were having these discussions on the plan, people are looking at what you see over there on your left, that blue example, and they're thinking about the typical plan. And a lot of urban renewal plans, they've done quite a few urban renewal plans in Baltimore City. Then usually half of those plans, okay, they're talking about what area they want to focus in on, why that area is blighted, and giving the authority to that jurisdiction to acquire that property. Now, we didn't have to deal with that because coming into this process, we already own the property. So we didn't need to look at that. Then a lot of the plans get into planning and into land use and changing the zoning requirements. In this plan, we don't need to change any of the zoning or land uses. Based on the feedback we got from you, okay, those goalposts that we're setting, we don't need to change any of the zoning, so that's good news. Now, over there on the red to your right, that's the planning process that we went through, okay? And you'll see there at the very bottom, we're not looking here at just refining this to one thing that's going to be in this area, okay? So again, when people say, I want a grocery store in there, well, that's a part of the plan, but it's not mandating that a grocery store go in the Safeway building. But we heard what you said. We know a lot of people want that food element here. They want a grocery store, and it's a part of the plan. It's in the plan. Okay, so county sales strategy. As the county executive has told you at our previous meetings, we plan on putting this out as a formal request for proposal, the RFP process. And we are going to be forming an RFP committee. So after the council reviews this plan, when they pass it through a resolution, an RFP committee will be formed. And we will actually have community members on that RFP committee. So there's still going to be opportunity, again, not to be a broken record, but I want to make it clear tonight that, this plan A is still going to go through some refinement, okay? Then there's going to be opportunity to work with the council, and they're going to be giving additional input in addition to the input they've already been giving us. And then we have the RFP process. So there's still a few steps involved here. And I didn't mention this earlier, but this plan doesn't trump any requirements in the planning process. And what do I mean by that? A lot of people, I think, came into this process thinking, all right, the county's going to come up with this revitalization plan, and this plan is going to dictate exactly what is going to happen and what a developer needs to do when they come in here. And actually, while it's letting a developer know what our objectives are as a community and what we want to accomplish here, what our vision is for this village center, they still need to go through all those planning requirements. All right, just like any other developer, if a developer went to another village center and they wanted to redevelop it, there's a specific process they need to go through, a planning process. And the steps are in a slide that are coming up, so you'll see all the steps that are involved. Again, we've captured a lot of your input, and we've looked at what you've told us, and we've looked at those top items. All right, what are those things that people really, that a majority of people here are saying they want to see in the village center? And again, we're not pinpointing one specific thing, because when a developer comes in here, we want to make sure that we're giving them that landscape and letting them understand, hey, we've done a lot of the work for you, and there's potential for any one of these items or a combination of these items in this village center. So objectives, the guts of the plan, all right? What do we want here? And obviously economic sustainability is a key. That's the whole reason why we purchased the village center in the first place. We want a thriving, economically stable village center here. And the plan, when you do read it, you'll see that key components of that plan are really pushing this objective. Connectivity, all right? Making sure that we're connected to all the neighborhoods that are here, walkability, the bike paths, the sidewalks, making sure that you can all get access to community space, open space. That was key. So what we were hearing is, yeah, this open space is great, but we want more. And building and site design. I'm not going to get into the weeds on this one. If you have specific questions, again, we're going to give you the opportunity after this to ask staff. Now, conceptual diagram. In the plan itself, you're going to see there's actually a page that has this map. So this is the way that we are helping all of you visualize those objectives. So we're saying we have these objectives here. What could this village center potentially look like? Now, the thing to keep in mind is that this is the 19.1 acres, all right? We're not just looking at the 7.7 acres the county acquired. And as you're looking, for example, where it says A, you'll see A1, A2, gateway features. And when you see the plan, there'll be pictures of, other areas that have gateway signs. And what do those gateway signs look like? Where could we potentially put those gateway signs? Now, again, we're not mandating, we're not telling a developer, if you come in, there has to be a gateway sign on the corner of Tamar and Forland Garth. That's not the case, but we want people to visualize the possibilities. That's the key here. Okay, so future land use. The key here is with land use, we're working off your input and what you want to see here. And we emphasize that in the plan, all right? And again, as I mentioned before, we are not changing zoning. We're not changing the land use here. We're not pushing for any changes in that regard. This is the Village Center redevelopment process. Now, talking to a lot of you through those 4 previous meetings, people have come to me and said, you know what, Raj, we like the fact that the community has a lot of oversight through the development process. That's great, but we don't want it to take as long as it took at Wildlake. And so there's a balancing act there. But the way it stands right now, the requirements are if a developer comes in, okay, they need to still go through this process, all right? This doesn't negate, this plan and what we've been going through doesn't negate this process, okay? So the techniques for achieving our objective. Now, the plan lays out a whole litany. It's a spectrum, as I said before. So it talks about if a developer comes in here, all right, they may potentially rehab, okay? They don't have to demolish and redevelop. It might be a combination of the two. There might be a public-private partnership. The county might be working with them. There might be partnerships with nonprofits. There are lots of machinations here, lots of combinations of things that we can do. And as we're working through the RFP process, this plan, again, is going to guide us, all right? And as we have those goalposts, we're going to be narrowing those goalposts as we go through that RFP process, and you'll be a part of that RFP process. So, next steps. The immediate next steps is when I'm done talking, you're all going to start asking questions, engaging planning and zoning staff. Again, I know you're getting an overview, so these are going to be broad-based questions that you're asking us tonight, but you will have opportunity to really get into the weeds and ask us specific questions about this plan. But in terms of next steps, we're going to be working on finalizing this plan. As we engage you, get more feedback from you, finalize this plan, okay, we're going to be going to the planning board. Now, we're not required to go to the planning board, but we're doing our due diligence, okay? We're sharing this with the planning board. We want to get their input. So we're sharing with the planning board, getting their input, and then, as I said, we plan on presenting this to the council in December, okay? If we hit that targeted deadline in December, there'll be public hearings in January, okay? And then once the council passes it through resolution, then we're going to work on that RFP that I've mentioned. So that's a very quick overview of the plan itself. Now, in terms of what we're going to be doing for the second half of the meeting, I'm going to be standing back there at that table. So if you want to engage me specifically, please do so. I'm going to be right back there. But before I actually get into how we're going to be running the second half of this meeting, I want to acknowledge some planning staff that have really spent a lot of time. They did a great job putting this plan together. It's been a pleasure working with them. As most of you know, I'm fairly new to the Office of Planning and Zoning, not new to the county. I've been working with the county for 9 years, but I'm fairly new to planning and zoning. It's been great working with them. So I want to acknowledge Kristen O'Connor, who is our Chief of Comprehensive Planning for the county, Kate Bollinger, and Randy Clay. I don't know where Randy's behind that pillar, at least for me, he's behind the pillar. So the three of them, they've worked on this plan. They worked on putting all the previous events together. They're going to be at the other tables where you see all those pretty boards. And those boards are actually showing you elements of the plan itself. So when you read that plan, those are pages in the plan that you're going to be seeing. So at this point, we're going to be going into the open house phase. And as I said, whatever questions you have, we're here to answer those questions. On those sheets that you have in front of you that are giving you a synopsis of the plan, you will see the contact information for Kristen, and you will also see the contact information for Kate. They are there to answer all the questions you have before we bring this to council, because we want to refine this plan. Okay, and there are important elements that you may look at this and say, hey, Raj, in meeting number 2, we talked about X, Y, and Z. We want to know why we're not reading it in that plan, and we might have explanation for you, and we might say, you know what, it needs to be in there. Okay, and so at this point, we think that the plan we have is a pretty solid plan. We've gone to you, we've gone to the village board and talked to them, we've gone to the Columbia Association, we've sat down with them, we've talked to members of the council, okay? So again, a collaborative process. We think we're almost there at the finish line in regards to this plan. So tonight, please make the most of the next 30 minutes. The staff are here. We're excited to hear what you have to say. Again, there's still several steps left in the process, but in terms of the plan itself, we think we're there. Thank you very much for coming tonight. I'm going to let the county executive say one more thing.
Real quick, I just saw he came in. Delegate Eric Ebersol is here, so thank you very much for coming, Eric. And also, just to let you know, you're looking some fuzz on my face. You're probably going, why is Kittleman doing that? I don't grow beards. But we're doing No Shave November. We've asked a lot of folks in our staff. You'll see Andy Barth, our press secretary. He has his beard growing on. Tom Carbo's doing it, and some other folks. I know Val's helping. But the whole purpose is to bring attention to men's health issues. So I'm basically doing a commercial here, and I want to make sure everybody here encourages their friends and their family members to get their annual exams, to make sure they give for other screenings they need to get at their time of year, and go to dental exams. Last month we focused on breast cancer and domestic violence, a lot of things that affect women's issues. This month we're focusing on men's issues. So if you're looking at me going, what in the world is he thinking? Because it certainly doesn't look good on him. I'm not stupid. I'm just doing it because I made a commitment for November. Come December 1st, this will be gone. But I want to make sure that people know that, please, our loved ones and our family members and our friends are too important. So encourage everybody to get their screenings. So again, thanks for being here, folks. Thanks.
And thank you, County Executive Kittleman. And I would have my scruff, but the bristles kind of rub up against the mic. My beard was getting a little unruly, but I will continue to grow it. So again, thank you very much for coming out tonight. We really appreciate your participation and input. It is critical to this process. Again, I will be back there. Staff will be around at these tables, and we're looking forward to hearing your questions on the plan. Thank you very much. Okay, and a representative from Senator Guzon's office is back there. Thank you very much.
We're not going to have any kind of open questions right now for a few minutes?
No, we're going to be doing it at the tables, and one of the reasons why we're doing that is if we start this theater style and we do that, we get 7 or 8 questions in there. When the time ends, then we have 15, 20 other people who are shooting emails to us. They don't get their questions answered. So this way, you can really talk to us face to face. And you'll probably have about 20 or 30 people at your table anyway. So thank you very much. And we look forward to hearing your questions.